Okay, so today we're going to talk about Envision. And we are on topic 1, lesson 6. And this will be our last video in topic 1. We will do our next couple of lessons together as a class as well as our assessment. So we're going to make a number line because we are going to talk about rounding. So our objective today is, I'm going to write it right here, I can round decimals. And I don't know why my E is that way, but oh well. So we're going to actually start with just rounding regular numbers. So I always I write myself a little chart. And I write all of the digits, all of the units. Remember we had our little place value family. And I just always remind myself that if it is 4 or less, it goes down. If it's 5 or higher, it goes up. And then I pay attention to what they're asking me to round. So let's say that I have the number 45. So I'm going to write myself a number line, and I'll have 40 and 50. And the reason I chose 40 and 50 is because those are the closest tens, and I want my 45 rounded to the nearest 10. So I'm going to just put some ticks in here. So this would be 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, they're not spaced very good, but that's okay, 48, and 49. Now, if I looked at 45 on the number line, I would remember that when it's 5 or above, it rounds up. So I'm rounding up to 50. So you look at so if I want to round to the nearest 10, I look at the place value to the right of it, and I round that up or down to the nearest number next to it. So if I had the number 400, that's like 4, let's just cross it out, 454. And I said, let's round it to the nearest 100. So I will look at the place value next to the right of the hundredths place. And I see that it is 4. It is 5 or above. So 5 or above means I round it up to 500. Now, if you don't remember rounding, still try and do the problems that I give you on the guided practice. Do the best you can, and then I promise that we will go over it in class. But I really, really, really want you to try. Remember, you get credit if you try. You don't get credit if you don't try. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a problem on page 35, and I'm going to go ahead and just clear my paper because I'm not going to have enough room. So I'm going to make myself a number line. And like I said, this is the question on top of page 35, and I'm giving myself a nice and long number line. And I would like you to draw a number line as well. So it says, in science class, Marcy recorded numbers from an experiment as 12 and 87 hundredths, 12 and 13 hundredths, 12 and 5 tenths, and 12 and 8 hundredths. From which numbers are closer to 12 and which numbers are closer to 13? And so I am going to draw myself a number line. And it's actually, it should say, so it's 12 and 13. It already told us what numbers we need to put on the number line. Now, I am going to put some ticks in, and I'm going to go ahead and finish drawing my number line. And I know that it takes 10 tenths to get to 13. So I'm going to put in 10 tenths. I'm going to put 10 little ticks in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then of course 10 would be the same as 13. And I'm just going to go 12 and 1 tenth, 12 and 2 tenths, 12 and 3 tenths, 12 and 4 tenths, 12 and 5 tenths, oh my goodness, 12 and 6 tenths, 12 and 7 tenths, 12 and 8 tenths, 12 and 9/10. And I hope you can read those okay. So now we're going to look at those numbers, and we have the numbers 12 and 87/100, 12 and 13/100. We have the number 12 and 5/100. Sorry, 12 and 5/10, excuse me, and 12 and 8/100. Okay, so I'm going to look at this first one and I'm going to say, okay, I have the number 12, which we should not be beyond 13, and I have 87/100. So I'm going to go to that 12.8, and I know that that's probably pretty close to 12 and 9/10. So I'm just going to put a little arrow, and that is 12 and 87/100. Now I'm going to look at 12 and 13/100. And I notice that it has 12 and then it has a 1 in the 10th place. So it would go about right here, maybe. I'm going to put a little arrow, and this will be 12 and 13/100. And now this one's easy. I already have 12 and 5/10 marked on my, on my number line. And so this one would just go right here. That's an arrow, 12 and 5/10. And then 12 and 8/10, there's a 0 in the 10th place, so I know it's going to be less than 12 and 1/10 because we've been doing greater than and less than. So I'm just going to make an arrow, and this will be 12 and 8/100. Sorry, I'm pretty sure I said 8/10 before. Okay, so what it's asking is which ones are closer to 12 and which ones are closer to 13. So closer to 12, I'm just going to write it out. Closer to 12 is, of course, 12 and 8/10. Oh, let's try that again. Sorry, 12 and 8/100. And 12 and 13/100, because those are awfully close. Ooh, I have 12 and 5/10 in the middle. So let's think about that. Will that go up to 13, or will it go down to 12? Well, I know for a fact that I look next to the number to the right of the number that I'm looking for, and that is 5. Look at that. And so it will go up to 13 because remember, 5 or above goes up, 4 or below goes down. So closer to 13. 13 is 12 and 5/10, and of course 12 and 87/100. All right. Now, if you go down to the bottom where it says look back, it says what is the halfway point between 12 and 13? Is that point closer to 12 or 13? The halfway point is halfway, it is 12 and 5/10. And it's in the it's halfway, so it's not closer to either, which makes it, but when we round, we go up. So it's not closer. Okay, let's move on to page 36. So go ahead and turn the page in your books, and let's go to 36. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this, and we're going to move on to this next one, and I'm going to draw myself another number line. And put some little arrows on it because the line has 2 arrows, and it says rounding replaces one number with another number that tells about how much. So round 2 and 36/100 to the nearest tenths. Is 2 and 36/100 closer to 2 and 3/10 or 2 and 4/10? So it already told me that I need to have 2 and 3/10 and 2 and 4/10. And I'm going to draw my 10 ticks because it takes 10/100 to get a tenth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so how I would write this is 2 and 31/100, 2 and 32/100, 2 and 33/100, 2 and 34/100, 2 and 35/100, 2 and 36/100, 2 and 37/100, 2 and 38/100, and 2 and 39/100. Okay, now it says Is 2 3600ths closer to 2 3/10 or 2 4/10? So let's find 2 3600ths. It is beyond the midway point. It has 6 or higher, so it is going to go to 2 400ths. I mean 2 4/10. Sorry, I keep getting mixed up there. Okay, so let's go down to the convince me, and it says, Carrie said 448 rounds to 500 because 448 rounds to 450 and 450 rounds to 500. And again, this is on the convince me portion. Is she correct? Explain. So let's draw another number line. Oops, I forgot to change it. Okay, so we have 400 and we have 500. Now, we have 450. Now, I could write out the whole thing, but I know that 448 is very close to 550, so this will be 448. Now, just because 448 rounds up to 450, it does not mean that we go all the way up to 500. When we round 448, it is less than 5 because we look at the number to the right of what we're looking at, which is the 410 spot. It will round down to 400. So hopefully that is somewhat clear. Let's go ahead and let's just look at, let's go to number 11 on our independent practice. And I'm not requiring you to draw a number line, but if you don't know, I think it would be easier to draw a number line. It says, what does 4 5/10 round to? What whole number digit does 4 5/10 round to? Well, it is 5 or above, so it is going to round to 5. Let's look at number 16 on the independent practice, and these are all on page 37. And it says, does 758 thousandths, and we are running it to the underlying digit. So the underlying digit is 500ths. So I'm looking at that. So I need to look at the number to the right of it. So does 8 round down to 0 or round down to 50 or round up to 60? And the answer is it rounds up to 60. So it would be 76 hundredths. So I want you guys to, for homework, to do the guided practice on page 37. So I'm going to write that on here, homework. And like I said, it is the guided practice. And it's on page 37. And we are doing numbers 1 through 10. Now, rounding should be a review concept for you. If it is not and you really don't understand rounding, I still want you to try. I still want you to try and do the best you can. I'd much rather have you get it wrong and be able to figure out what you're doing and be able to look at your paper and know what you're doing wrong, rather than not have you try it at all and not being able to see what you know or what you don't know. Just remember to go to the number to the right of the problem that you are rounding, of the number you are rounding, and if it's 5 or above, it goes up, and it's 4 or below, it goes down. Good luck with today's assignment. I know that this might be a little bit more confusing for some of you, but like I said, just make sure you're doing the best you can. And I will check your guided practice tomorrow. Good luck.